Tansei, welcome to APTN National News. I'm Krisanaj Gate. Thank you for joining us. Families in Carry the Kettle, Chegakin, Nakota Nation, just east of Regina, are mourning the loss of their loved one this week. According to RCMP, on Sunday, 18-year-old Keelia Windigo was shot and killed at her 18th birthday party in the town of Wolseley, Saskatchewan. The incident happened at around 4 a.m. Sunday morning at a home in the town. Indian Head RCMP received a report of a shooting. They pronounced Windigo dead when they arrived on scene. Her family says Keelia just graduated from high school last June and had plans to go to university in the fall to become a forensic scientist. A male youth from Carry the Kettle, who cannot be named because of his age, was arrested and is facing 10 charges, including manslaughter with a firearm and 6 counts of weapons possession. He made his first court appearance on Tuesday and will be back in court in Fort Capel on Thursday. A GoFundMe page with a goal to raise $9,000 for Windigo's funeral costs has been set up by a family friend. Gerald Hill is Wolseley's mayor. He shares his condolences with the family who moved into the town less than a year ago.
Something that was supposed to be a celebration turned into a tragedy. And unfortunately, it's a tragedy for both families. I know that it's really left our community reeling as to why, why is this kind of stuff happening? And, they had a couple of young kids there that, their lives are over, for all intents and purposes. And there's got to be a reason behind it. And that's what we're struggling with.
A First Nation in the Yukon has been waiting to fulfill its land use planning rights for over 2 decades. Now that plan is finally in the works. But as Sarah Connors tells us, the First Nation's efforts to have it completed in a timely manner is being slowed down by the territorial government. Here's that story.
The Tronda-Gwich'in First Nation is located in Dawson City, Yukon. For the last 5 years, they've been working with the territorial government to complete the Dawson Regional Land Use Plan. The plan, guaranteed in the First Nations final agreement, covers almost 40,000 kilometers, or 10% of the Yukon. Once completed, the plan will balance natural resource management, like mineral development, while also protecting Tronda-Gwich'in's rights, title, and interest.
From an Aboriginal perspective, it's protecting the environment, ensuring that we have the ability to harvest resources out of the land.
The Dawson Regional Planning Commission is an independent body of Yukon community members tasked with developing a plan for the region. It provided a recommended plan to both governments in 2022. The governments were then asked to determine whether to accept, reject, or modify the recommended plan. The First Nation submitted its recommendations in April, but says the territory has asked for multiple extensions to submit theirs.
But Yukon so far has not provided their submission. So in essence, the commission is sitting in limbo and we can't proceed or move this issue.
The First Nation says the government told them one of their holdups is that it's legally obligated to consult with the neighboring White River First Nation.
We shouldn't be held hostage around their duty to consult with White River, and I'm not truly understanding in the legal context why they have that obligation.
In a statement to APTN News, a government spokesperson said, "We will deliver our response to the recommended plan to the Commission once we have completed our consultation with affected Yukon First Nations, including White River First Nation. And we remain committed to a timely process and are investing the time needed to complete a thorough review of the recommended plan, including consideration of all pertinent views and information." But the Tronda-Gwich'in feels the territory isn't taking the matter seriously.
Rather, we see unnecessary and lengthy delays such that we can only assume that this process is not a priority for public government.
The government says it expects to submit its proposed modifications to the Commission this fall. Once the Commission gets them, it can start drafting a final plan. It's not yet clear when that final plan will be released. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
A 3-day transformative reconciliation gathering concluded at the River Cree Casino and Resort in the Enoch Cree Nation near Edmonton yesterday. The event attracted some big names to learn from each other and to talk about reconciliation. APTN's Chris Stewart has more.
People from across Alberta, Canada, and the U.S. were in Enoch Cree Nation the past 3 days. The 4th transformative reconciliation gathering offered guest speakers for young people and for all ages. Joanne Lethbridge-Pompana is from the Red Road Healing Society, a nonprofit that teaches traditional values. She created the gathering to help people find more about themselves and to learn from others.
We don't need a lot of stuff, but we do need to figure out who we are and where we come from and what our relationship is to Creator, how we define Creator, and how we find Creator in each and every one of us. We are medicine for each other when we hold up that mirror, when we reflect those values: love, courage, honesty, generosity, chastity, silence, respect.
There were workshops ranging in topics from transformative justice to housing initiatives, offering knowledge across all 3 days. Former chief of the Alexis Nakota Sioux Nation, Rod Alexis, spoke about the history of tribal law.
I like these workshops, these appreciations where we could, share with each other how it is. And some of the things that we do are traditional culture, the things that the gifts that the Creator gave us as First Nation people. We have to maintain that.
Dr. Clifford Cardinal spoke of ways to cleanse the tailings ponds in the oil sands. He says everyone can learn something here.
All this knowledge is here for us. We don't have to look. There are some key speakers here from the Mohawk people, very new information that I learned.
This is Gladys McDonald's second time attending. She says she will be back for the next gathering.
It's unbelievable what the 2 days that I've been here is wow. And I look with who I'm sitting with around the table, and I just think, this light went off. This is what the elders meant when I was growing up. How in the future kind of prepared me into being who I am today at my age, we say elders and that. And this is what we have to teach our children.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Enoch Cree Nation, Alberta.
A new treatment center has recently opened in North Battleford, Saskatchewan. The center will be operated by Poundmakers Lodge Treatment Centers, and it will provide 14 withdrawal management and inpatient addictions treatment spaces to Saskatchewan residents. The Saskatchewan government says the 14 treatment spaces is part of its commitment to add 500 treatment spaces across the province to double its capacity. For 5 decades, Poundmakers Lodge has been providing addictions treatment that includes Indigenous culture and spirituality. The grand opening ceremony was held last Friday with all spots filled, and there is already a wait list of 40 people. Brad Cardinal, the executive director for Poundmakers Lodge Treatment Centers, explains what the treatment process would be like.
You would be expected to be in our service, in our treatment center for 42 days of intensive addiction treatment programming. And it's a very robust program. Again, we're treating the individual mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So when you enter our program, our first attempt is to ensure that you've gone through the withdrawal management phase, that you're feeling okay physically and well enough to participate in our program. And we will have nurses on staff and a medical director to supervise your withdrawal management.
Australia has just released its own report on murdered and missing Indigenous women and children. First announced in 2021, the inquiry was granted 3 extensions before releasing its final report on August 16th. The 227-page report looks at data, factors driving violence, and police culture, among other things. While data was inconsistent, it found there is a high and grossly disproportionate number of disappeared and murdered First Nations women and children. Australian officials received guidance from commissioners of Canada's MMIWG National Inquiry on how to conduct their own. The report makes 10 recommendations. Senator Dorinda Cox was the only Indigenous senator on the committee. She hopes the report honors the lives lost and the loved ones and communities impacted by systemic failures. The senator says the report does not go far enough.
We've heard from loved ones who felt silenced and forgotten, and of the losses of dignity and humanity, and in too many cases, the loss of life. This report is about deliberate actions and failures of a system that has at its heart racially and gendered violence. It is in fact the form of genocide when the system doesn't properly respond to save the lives of First Nations people. And there must continue to be outrage about this happening in a modern-day country like Australia. We simply don't know how many First Nations women and children have been murdered or continue to be missing because we don't capture any of that necessary data. The majority of the report does provide some suggestions, but there are, and continue to be, no targets, no performance indicators to hold anyone to account if this important data cannot be gathered.
Survivors of what is known as Canada's Indian Boarding Home Program can begin applying for compensation today. Under the program, students were often sent hundreds of kilometers away from their home communities to live with mainly non-Indigenous families to attend public schools. It ran from 1951 to 1992 and affected about 33,000 Indigenous kids. As part of a $2 billion settlement, claimants are eligible for between $10,000 to $200,000 depending on the level of abuse they suffered. They have until February 22nd, 2027 to apply. For more information, go to boardinghomesclassaction.com. We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Graphic novel Little Moons explores the different ways grief can affect the relatives of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Sav Jones sits down with author Jen Storm. That story when we're back in about 3 minutes. Welcome back. A new graphic novel hopes to show that there isn't one right way to grieve after a family member goes missing. The story, Little Moons, explores the emotions that could come up while waiting for answers. Sav Jones sat down with author Jen Storm to find out more.
When a loved one goes missing, your heart searches for them everywhere.
I had lost somebody in an MMIW scenario. And I felt a lot of those things. Like I felt like there was a presence. I would feel like lights flickering and you're just looking for that connection also, I think. So I really wanted to write about that experience.
Upcoming graphic novel Little Moons explores the different ways grief can affect the relatives of missing and murdered Indigenous women. Ojibwe author Jen Storm says though the story isn't based on her personal experience, it's a subject that's all too common within the Indigenous community.
Grief was important to me because I think that was a really hard thing for me to experience, and I know it's hard for other families to experience that have to deal with MMIW because not everyone's found, right? And so there's this like weird grief that you go through, I think, when you're expecting the worst news. You kind of already know, but you don't have the answers or the mourning or the body or whatever it is.
Through vivid colors and thought-provoking illustrations by Ryan Howe and Alice R.L., Little Moons follows 13-year-old Rihanna while she watches her immediate family deal with the disappearance of her older sister, Chelsea. Rihanna feels abandoned by her mother, who leaves their reserve to live in the city when emotions get too difficult to handle.
if you lost a daughter, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know what would go through your mind or how you would cope, or maybe that's the best she could do. Yeah. So it's like, I kind of wanted that to be in there because I know people don't react ideally, they react humanly.
Despite the pain, there's also hope found within Little Moons. Rihanna finds strength and comfort in connecting with spiritual practices.
It was really important to me for the main character to really have that connection to her community and her traditions and to find comforts. And then also have that parallel of her mother who felt she had to run away from it.
Storm says the title was inspired by her own son's experience of seeing her late childhood friend.
My son was, I think, 2, not even, and he was in his crib, and I went up to him, and he was saying, I saw Auntie, and he's never met her. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean you met Auntie? And he's like, she was here, like, and he kept, like, he was insisting. And I just kind of played along, and I was just like, well, what did Auntie look like then? And he was like, she looked like Little Moons. So that was like, oh.
Storm hopes that Little Moons can be a resource for any person, young or old, who is struggling with losing a loved one. Readers can find it on store shelves when it comes out September 3rd. Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Thank you, Sav. There's a polarizing debate among Manitobans when it comes to the provincial flag. Probe Research wanted to know if we should replace the flag, which contains a Union Jack and a bison. So the company put a question to the Manitobans in a survey. CTV's Jeff Keel has the details.
Manitobans are divided on whether we should fly a new provincial flag.
I think a new flag would give the province more of a sense of sovereignty.
I think this Manitoba flag's fine the way it is.
Probe Research says for years there's been a debate on the appropriateness of provincial symbols, culminating when protesters toppled the Queen Victoria statue in 2021. Manitoba's flag has colonial British symbols like the Union Jack and St. George's Cross, so the pollsters asked in a survey if those should be replaced.
Well, we found that Manitobans are pretty split.
The survey shows 49% of Manitobans say it's time for a new flag, while 51% say keep the current one. Of those who want change, only 16% are strongly in favor, while 27% of those against are strongly opposed to a change.
It tells me that a lot of people, would be potentially in favor of a new flag, but they don't have really strong feelings about it, whereas those who are opposed are more likely to have really strong feelings against making that change.
A statement from Manitoba's Heritage Minister suggests the current flag is here to stay, at least for now. While we have no plans to redesign the flag, we'll keep listening to Manitobans on this and other issues. But there are those who say our flag doesn't stand out, that it's too similar to the one in Ontario.
With our flag, with its roots in the British Red Ensign and the Commonwealth, we don't have that uniqueness, so it's actually used as an example of a bad flag design.
Matthew Hobson from the flag shop in Winnipeg says he'd like to see what ideas people could come up with for a new design.
And with the bison or another provincial icon as the central focus.
Maybe we could have a design contest or something.
Jeff Keel, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Another interesting note about that survey, people in Winnipeg, including younger Manitobans and Indigenous people, support a change to the flag, while older people and rural Manitobans lean towards keeping the flag as is. We will take you to the East Coast to tell you all about the Mi'kmaq Summer Games in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. That story when we're back in less than 3 minutes. Stick around. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. With the summer months winding down, harvest is just around the corner, and Dorothy shares this beautiful canola field in the heart of farmland Saskatchewan. All of your great pics can be sent to share at aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Over on the East Coast, 24 in Halifax, Charlottetown 24 as well. Cartwright 20, and Ujuak 17. Gasp 21, Val-d'Or 24. Toronto 25, Sarnia 23. Sioux Lookout 24, Timmins 26 and sunny. God's Lake 24, Thompson 22. Winnipeg 24, Barons River 21. Regina 26, Saskatoon 25. La Ronge 23, 17 in Uranium City. Grand Prairie 25, 22 in Fort McMurray. Lethbridge 25, Medicine Hat 26. Campbell River 23, Tofino 19. Sandspit 21, Prince George 23. Beaver Creek 15, Old Crow 13. Yellowknife 15, Norman Wells 17. Fort McPherson 18, Inuvik 15. Chesterfield 15, Baker Lake 17. And Clyde River 11, Arctic Bay 5. The annual Mi'kmaq Summer Games kicked off this week, hosted by Member 2 First Nation in beautiful Cape Breton. APTN's Angel Moore is at the Games and brings us this report.
I'm here at the Member 2 First Nation powwow grounds, the gathering place for the Mi'kmaq Summer Games. It's been held in different communities since 2010.
Okay, take a second. Yeah, take it.
Earlier today was the Under-13 softball games between Member 2 and Sabaganagati nations. It's the first time competing in softball for 10-year-old Ava Gugu of the Sabaganagati First Nation.
Well, I think they're just like fun to play, and it's a way to get to know people, and you could also make more friends.
A small crowd of supporters enjoyed the game, Sabaganagati First Nation winning this round. But the games aren't about who comes out on top, they're about community building.
Look around. All our visitors are here, our relatives, people from as far as Quebec, I believe. I met some people from Listigouche last night.
Over at the Member 2 bowling alley, 12 to 18-year-olds warmed up. Anastasia Kabate is from Member 2. She loves bowling so much, she works at the alley and is confident she will play a good game.
Fairly good, fairly good. I come here, I work here, so I actually get some time to like practice and like just bowl whenever we're not busy. So, and I usually get some pretty good scores, so I think I'll do fairly good.
Kabate is also Miss Member 2, representing her community in the Summer Games Princess Pageant. She is more nervous about the pageant than bowling.
I am nervous, I really am, but all the girls are being so encouraging and so supportive and so kind, so that helps.
The games continue tomorrow, including arm wrestling, volleyball, and basketball. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Member 2 First Nation, and Unamagi, Mi'kmaq for Cape Breton.
Sign me up for bowling. That looks like a lot of fun. Thank you, Angel. And that's your evening APTN National Newscast for this Wednesday, August 21st. Where did the time go? It's almost September. Hola. We will be back again tomorrow at noon Winnipeg time for your midday newscast. Make sure to join us then. From everyone at APTN National News, Miigwech, Masicho, hi hi. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again.